Mariam first met Michael on a hot Saturday afternoon in Lagos. It was at her cousin Halima's wedding, the kind of grand Nigerian ceremony where every detail had been meticulously planned. The bride wore a sparkling lace gown, and the groom looked sharp in a tailored agbada. The atmosphere buzzed with laughter, music, and the aroma of jollof rice wafting through the hall. Mariam had been sitting quietly at her table, sipping Chapman and trying to avoid her aunties, who were throwing not-so-subtle hints about her single status. That was when Michael walked in. He wasn't just handsome. He had an air about him, the kind that made people turn their heads. Tall, confident, and dressed in a crisp white kaftan, Michael looked like he belonged in a Nollywood movie. As fate would have it, they ended up sitting next to each other during the reception. Michael struck up a conversation, his deep voice carrying over the loud music. "You don't seem to be enjoying the party," he said, a teasing smile playing on his lips. Mariam smiled shyly. "It's not that. I'm just tired of my aunties playing matchmaker." He laughed, and that laughter was the start of everything. Over the next few hours, they talked about their jobs, dreams, and how Lagos traffic was the bane of their existence. Mariam was a teacher who loved shaping young minds, while Michael was an architect who dreamed of designing iconic buildings. By the end of the evening, Michael had asked for her number. Mariam hesitated for a moment before giving it to him. Something about him felt different, safe, yet exciting. Over the following months, their relationship blossomed. Michael was attentive, always showing up with flowers or thoughtful gifts. He listened when Mariam spoke about her students and made her laugh when she was stressed. Mariam, in turn, admired Michael's ambition and the way he carried himself with quiet confidence. Their families were thrilled when Michael proposed during a quiet dinner at a small restaurant in Victoria Island. Mariam's elder sister, Isha, cried tears of joy. Even Mama Chinyere, Michael's mother, seemed pleased, although she had a habit of looking at Mariam with a scrutinizing gaze. Their wedding was everything they dreamed of, a celebration of love, hope, and the future they were about to build together. As they danced into their reception to the beat of King Sunny Ade, the crowd cheered, and their hearts swelled with joy. The first year of marriage was like a dream. Mariam and Michael moved into a modest but cozy apartment in Surulere. Every evening, they sat on the couch, eating suya and talking about their day. They dreamed of the future, of the house they would build, the trips they would take, and the children they would raise. Michael loved children and often talked about how he couldn't wait to have a little girl who would call him Daddy. But as the months turned into a year, the absence of those children became harder to ignore. At first, it was just a passing comment from Mama Chinyere during one of her Sunday visits. Mariam, I hope you are not working too hard, oh? You know these days, career women forget what's important." Mariam forced a smile, but her heart sank. She and Michael had been trying for a baby since their wedding night. Each month, her disappointment grew when her period arrived. Michael always comforted her, telling her not to worry. "It will happen when it's meant to," he would say, holding her close. But Mama Chinyere's comments didn't stop. At family gatherings, she would make remarks loud enough for everyone to hear. "In my time, by the first year of marriage, I already had Michael in my arms. These young women don't know how to be wives anymore." Michael never defended Mariam. He would just change the subject or excuse himself. Mariam tried to brush it off, but the words cut deep. Her elder sister Aisha noticed the tension during one of their visits. "Mariam, you can't let these people get to you," she said, her voice firm. "You and Michael love each other. That's what matters." Mariam nodded, but the doubt lingered. Did Michael feel the same way? The second year was harder. The whispers became louder, not just from family but from friends and neighbors. Mariam's colleagues at the school would nudge her playfully. "Ah, Madam Mariam, when will we hear the cry of a baby?" She laughed it off, but inside she felt like a failure. Michael, too, began to change. He came home later and seemed distant. Mariam tried to talk to him, but he always said he was busy with work. The gap between them grew, and Mariam felt like she was losing the man she had fallen in love with. Then one evening, during a family dinner, Mama Chinyere dropped the bombshell. "Michael, you know what you need to do," she said, her tone stern. "Take another wife. It's the only way." The room fell silent. Mariam felt her chest tighten as she looked at Michael, waiting for him to say something, anything, to defend her. But he didn't. He just stared at his plate, avoiding her gaze. That night, Mariam couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation in her head. Michael hadn't said yes, but he hadn't said no either. The following weeks were tense. Michael became even more withdrawn, and Mariam felt like she was living with a stranger. She tried to talk to Isha, who advised her to stand her ground. "Don't let them push you out of your own marriage," she said. But Mariam felt powerless. The weight of societal expectations and family pressure was suffocating. For the first time in her marriage, she wondered if love was enough to hold them together. When Michael finally told Mariam about his decision, it was a quiet Thursday evening. Mariam had just finished preparing dinner. Iba with ogbono soup. The rich aroma filled the apartment, but the meal remained untouched on the table. "I need to talk to you," Michael said, his voice low. He avoided her eyes, his hands fidgeting with his phone on the dining table. Mariam stopped in her tracks, her heart pounding. She knew what was coming, but prayed she was wrong. "About what?" she asked, trying to sound calm. Michael sighed deeply. "My mother, she's been saying things, and I think it's time I do what's best for the family." "Best for the family?" Mariam's voice rose, a mix of anger and disbelief. "What family, Michael? The one we've been trying to build for years? Or the one your mother keeps interfering with?" "I'm not doing this to hurt you," he said, his tone defensive. "But I can't keep ignoring her. She's right. If we're going to have children—" "Don't you dare finish that sentence," Mariam shouted, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. The man who had once promised her the world was now choosing his family's demands over their love. But Michael didn't back down. A week later, he introduced Beatrice to his family. She was younger, bright-eyed, and eager to please. The kind of woman who smiled politely even when everyone knew what her presence meant. Mariam avoided meeting Beatrice for as long as she could. But Lagos isn't big enough to hide from the truth forever. At a family gathering, Mariam saw her for the first time. Beatrice wore a colorful Ankara dress and carried herself with a quiet confidence that irritated Mariam. "She's just here to help the family grow," Mama Chinyere said when Mariam confronted her after the event. "You should thank her for taking some of the burden off you." Mariam wanted to scream, but all she could do was walk away. That night, she cried until her pillow was soaked. Michael didn't even come home. As weeks turned into months, the reality of sharing her husband sank in. Beatrice moved into a separate apartment nearby, but her presence was always felt. Michael split his time between the two homes, and Mariam felt like an afterthought in her own marriage. The worst part wasn't the loneliness. It was the pity. Friends and neighbors who once admired their love story now whispered behind her back. Even Aisha, her rock, struggled to find the right words to comfort her. "You need to focus on yourself," Aisha said one evening. "If Michael wants to ruin his life, let him. But don't let him take you down with him." But Mariam couldn't let go, not yet. There was still a part of her that believed they could fix what was broken. Determined to save her marriage, Mariam decided to take matters into her own hands. She visited fertility clinics, sought advice from herbalists, and tried every remedy suggested by well-meaning friends. Every doctor's visit was a mix of hope and heartbreak. "Your tests are normal," one doctor said, frowning as he reviewed her file. "There's no medical reason why you can't conceive." Mariam clung to those words, but they only deepened her frustration. If she was fine, then why wasn't it happening? One day, she overheard a conversation between two nurses at the clinic. "Sometimes it's not the woman," one nurse said, her voice hushed. "Men can have issues too, but they rarely get tested. Pride, you know." Mariam froze. Could it be Michael? She had never considered the possibility. He always acted so confident, so sure of himself. But the more she thought about it, the more sense it made. That evening, she brought it up carefully. "Michael, have you ever thought about getting tested? Maybe we should both." "What are you trying to say?" He snapped, his tone sharper than she had ever heard. "That this is my fault?" "No, I just think it's something we should consider." "I don't need to consider anything," he interrupted. "I'm fine. You're the one who needs to figure this out." His words cut like a knife. Mariam didn't bring it up again, but the doubt lingered. Desperate to prove her worth as a wife, Mariam turned to a local herbalist her friend Bola recommended. The woman, Mama Ezi, was known for helping couples conceive. Her shop smelled of herbs and incense, and shelves were lined with bottles of strange-looking powders. "You must take this tea every morning," Mama Ezi said, handing Mariam a bag of dried leaves. "And you must believe. Faith is just as important as medicine." Mariam nodded, clinging to the hope Mama Ezi offered. For months, she followed the regimen religiously, praying every night for a miracle. And then it happened. One morning, Mariam felt a wave of nausea that didn't go away. She bought a pregnancy test, her hands trembling as she waited for the result. When the second line appeared, she burst into tears. She was finally pregnant, but her joy was short-lived. A week later, while cleaning Michael's study, Mariam found a folder hidden in the back of a drawer. Inside were medical reports with Michael's name on them. As she skimmed through the pages, her heart sank. Michael had been diagnosed with infertility years ago. He had known all along. Mariam sat on the floor, clutching the papers as tears streamed down her face. The man who had blamed her, who had let her bear the weight of their struggles alone, had been lying to her from the beginning. When Michael came home that evening, Mariam confronted him, her voice shaking with anger. "How could you? How could you lie to me for all these years?" Michael didn't deny it. "I didn't know how to tell you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I thought we could still make it work." "But you let me suffer," Mariam said, her voice breaking. "You let me believe it was my fault. You let your family humiliate me. And now there's Beatrice. Was it all worth it, Michael?" Michael had no answer. The confrontation marked the end of whatever was left of their marriage. Mariam moved in with Aisha, her heart shattered but determined to rebuild her life. She refused to let Michael's lies define her. After Mariam's discovery, things between her and Michael became unbearable. Conversations turned into shouting matches, and silence became their shared language. Mariam, now pregnant, felt trapped. The joy of carrying a child, a gift she had prayed for, was overshadowed by the bitterness in her heart. She couldn't look at Michael without seeing the lies he had told, the betrayal that had eaten away at their love. One evening, as Mariam sat on the bed, rubbing her growing belly, Michael walked in. He looked exhausted, but she didn't care. He had made his choices, and she was done trying to fix things. "We need to talk," he said, his voice softer than usual. Mariam didn't respond. She kept her eyes on the television, pretending to be engrossed in the old Nollywood movie playing. "Mariam, please," Michael pleaded, sitting on the edge of the bed. "What do you want, Michael?" she finally said, her tone cold. "Another excuse? Another lie? Or are you here to tell me Beatrice is pregnant too?" Her words stung, and Michael winced. "I know I messed up. I know I've hurt you. But can we at least try to move forward? For the baby?" "For the baby?" Mariam laughed bitterly. "You want to act like a father now, after everything? Do you even know what it means to be a father?" Michael didn't answer. He looked down, his hands clasped tightly together. For the first time in a long time, he seemed unsure of himself. The days turned into weeks, and their home became a battleground. Michael spent more time at Beatrice's apartment, and Mariam found solace in her work and her friendship with Aisha. "Are you sure you can handle this on your own?" Aisha asked one afternoon as they sat in her small shop. "I don't have a choice," Mariam said, sipping her malt drink. "I'm not staying in a marriage built on lies. I won't let my child grow up in this mess." Aisha nodded, her expression serious. "You're strong, Mariam, stronger than most, but don't forget to take care of yourself too. You deserve peace." The day Mariam filed for divorce was both liberating and heartbreaking. She walked into the courthouse with her head held high, but inside, her heart was heavy. This wasn't how she had imagined her life would turn out. Michael didn't take the news well. "You're really going to do this?" he asked when she handed him the papers. "Yes," Mariam said firmly. "This marriage died the day you chose lies over love." Michael stared at her, his face a mix of anger and sadness. "And what about the baby? You're just going to take our child and leave?" "Our child?" Mariam said, her voice trembling. "The child you would have let me believe I could never have. The child you didn't even fight for when your family humiliated me." Michael had no response. He looked away, his silence louder than any words he could have spoken. The divorce proceedings were messy. Michael's family tried to intervene, accusing Mariam of being selfish and ungrateful. Beatrice stayed in the background, her presence a constant reminder of everything Mariam had lost. But Mariam didn't waver. She fought for custody of her child and the little dignity she had left. Aisha was by her side through it all, her unwavering support a beacon of hope in Mariam's darkest moments. On the final day of the proceedings, as the judge signed the papers, Mariam felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. She was free, but at what cost? Mariam's story is a reminder of the fragility of love and the strength it takes to walk away from what no longer serves us. Silence and deception can destroy even the strongest bonds, but truth and self-respect can help us rebuild. In the end, Mariam found her voice and her peace, proving that sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that set us free. I hope you enjoyed the story. If so, please like the video, share it with your family and friends, comment on it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap on the notification bell for more interesting stories like this one. Goodbye.